So let's talk about Baylor. Let's start there. 2-1, played Utah decently, you know, maybe better than people expected. Obviously won 2 games that people would say like, well, yeah, you've got to win the 2 games that you did. But what's the mood right now around Baylor? You know, what are your thoughts on them? How do you assess them to start the year? Not to play the moral victory game against Utah, but just thoughts around them.
Yeah, I think if you're a Baylor fan right now, you still don't exactly know how good this team is, but you're excited with what the defense has done. They have allowed the fewest passing yards of any team in the Big 12. Part of that's because you played Air Force, and they don't really throw the ball. But then again, Air Force has been a machine. It's the first time in nearly 2 decades that a non-service academy has held Air Force without a touchdown in regulation. That is a massive stat for a Baylor squad whose defense was so poor as last year. 115 in overall defense in the country, and now this season they can actually stop opposing teams. And the offense was abysmal against Utah and terrible in the first half against Air Force last week, but the saving grace is that Sawyer Robertson is now at quarterback. You had DeQuan Finn, the MAC player of the year, who was going to come in and save the day for the Baylor Bears, and he didn't necessarily do it. He was banged up last week, and the way that Sawyer Robertson played in the second half against Air Force, I think you're going to have to leave him in that QB spot. If you're a Bears fan, you're excited. You've played 3 teams. The only legitimate squad you played, you lost to fairly badly in Salt Lake, and if Cam Rising had been healthy the full game, you probably would have lost worse. But at 2-1, You're not upset right now, despite last week being, listen to this, TJ, listen to this. Last week's first half against Air Force, it was punt, field goal, punt, fumble, missed field goal, turnover on downs, field goal, fumble, punt, fumble, field goal. 6-3 score. One of the wildest, ugliest first halves that I've seen, but based on the last 2 quarters that Baylor has played, they feel like they're in a good spot.
So I know you're intimately close to the Big 12, obviously covering all things Big 12 there for Locked On. Let's talk about Colorado, a new addition to the Big 12. Haven't played a conference game yet, but did, survived, it felt like, against North Dakota State, although if not for a weird interception and kind of a garbage time touchdown, they kind of win going away, I think, in that first one. Absolutely shell-shocked, embarrassed by Nebraska. That Nebraska front was just way too much. And then, I'm not trying to read into the Colorado State win too much, but that was a team that took them to the wire last year, and you certainly felt like they were a little bit better against them this year on the road versus at home. What are your thoughts around Colorado so far?
I still don't think Colorado State is a very good football team, and this is not a quality road win like it would be to go to the likes of a Tulane, as Kansas State did a couple of weeks ago. And the win against North Dakota State, while they're an FCS school, they're one of the best, and there's a value to that. You win that home game, you open the season on a high note. You're 2-1 right now. That Nebraska loss being the game that everybody looked at Colorado and said, hey, we're asking questions about this football program, and they're questions that are deserved. Can Shedeur Sanders against an elite defense do well? Can Shedeur Sanders this week against not an elite defense, but a serviceable to good Baylor defense do well? Again, the Bears allow the fewest passing yards of anybody per game in the conference through the first fourth of this season. Can Shedeur Sanders compete against that better than he did against Nebraska, where Colorado put up just 10 points? And honestly, TJ, the assessment for Colorado for me comes more off the field than it does on the field. This is a program with an identity crisis, a culture crisis right now, where week in and week out we ask, is Shedeur Sanders a competent leader in the locker room? Is his dad, the head coach, a competent leader in the locker room? And I'm still not sure if the answer is yes. You see the conduct that both of them give to opposing teams. His dad won't shake the opposing coach's hand, or Shedeur won't shake the hand of the opposing quarterback. And there's a lot of talk that comes out of Colorado. They're a very tumultuous football program, and that's not a good thing for most Colorado fans who've only seen their school win more than 5-6 games twice in the last 16 years. That's not very good. They want to win in Colorado. This is not the culture to do it long term, but it could work on Saturday against Baylor.
Yeah. So with that, both these teams probably look at the opponent this weekend and think, well, if we're going to go bowling, we've got to pick this one up, just because it gets tougher for both teams. There's no doubt. And I think both teams are somewhat evenly matched. I think ESPN has this as like a 2-point spread, or I think they have Colorado favored like 56% to 44. So it's pretty close. But it's a game where if you lose it, it feels like, man, it's hard to start penciling in too many more wins the rest of the way. Who's the game mean more for?
Yeah, if you're Colorado, it means more for you. You had higher expectations preseason. Baylor could afford on the national scale to go 3-9. Fire Dave Aranda, and ESPN would barely make a headline about it. For Colorado, all eyes are still on you because Deion Sanders is the biggest show in the Big 12. You need to win as many games as possible to keep yourself relevant and to keep Deion Sanders in town. I'm not sure that he's going to be there next season, but the key to him staying is winning a lot of football games, and Baylor's a winnable game. After that, you go to UCF, you face Kansas State, go on the road against Arizona. Those are 3 really tough games for Colorado. So can they keep this momentum of beating Colorado State, starting 2-1 against the Bears? You have to moving forward because Baylor, thanks to the way their schedule shakes out the rest of the way, actually doesn't have it that hard. The West Virginia game now seems very winnable. The Kansas game seems winnable. Texas Tech seems quite winnable. If the Bears lose to Colorado, they could still reasonably go 5-7, 6-6. The Buffs, they need this one to keep morale because morale is a very big thing in Deion Sanders' program.
If you're Baylor, what worries you the most about Colorado this weekend?
Their Heisman candidate quarterback or their Heisman candidate wide receiver / cornerback. Now, yeah, 2 guys can't win you a football game. We're learning that with Arizona and Noah Fafita, Tet McMillan, who are 2 of the best in the country at what they do. For Colorado, against Baylor, though, I think Travis Hunter is going to get his. I questioned a lot about how good of a wide receiver he would be. Will he be a number 1 target? He's proven to be that for the Buffs. And can he keep that going on the defensive side of the ball? He's proven to do that for Deion Sanders' squad as well. If you're Baylor, I'm worried about 2 names. They're Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Past that, I'm not worried about the Colorado defense. I'm not worried about their O-line. I just need to try to bottle up the power that is Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis did it literally in every way possible.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, as much as like we give them grief for stuff that happens off the field and headlines, seeing the effort, like the effort play of chasing the guy down. Now, Colorado State ended up scoring anyway. Seeing that out of Travis Hunter to me was actually pretty special. Like, obviously, I know he's just like a man among boys going out and catching the ball and returning interceptions and stuff like that. But the effort play, to me, meant more than anything else that he made to chase that guy down. And I thought that was actually pretty impressive for a team that creates headlines in the worst.
I'll say he's a very good kid in a very rocky culture situation. I think that is true of Travis Hunter.
You mentioned offensive line, defensive line. You know, Colorado has not looked good in trench play really at all. A little bit better against some lower opponents like Colorado State and North Dakota State. Nebraska absolutely ate their lunch. Does Baylor have the advantage there in the trenches? Certainly defensive line to offensive line.
Defensively, for sure. And I think Baylor's linebacking core is good enough that if they send blitzes, they're going to put enough pressure on Shedeur Sanders to make him uncomfortable based on how bad Colorado's offensive line still is. Is it improved from last year? I believe that is a yes, but that's not saying a lot based on how bad Colorado's offensive line was last year. They added 2 key transfers. I'll say 2 of the top 5 offensive line transfers in the Big 12 are currently playing in Boulder. They still grade out to be the 15th or 16th best offensive line in the conference, or better yet, worst offensive line in this league. For a Baylor team that is defense focused, for a Baylor team that held Utah down, especially without Cam Rising, that this is a week where the Bears will attack, play green, as Dave Aranda calls it defensively. That's what's going to keep them in this game.
What about offensively? Colorado's defense actually in second halves of games, and then really the whole Colorado State game, how much do you take away from that? Yeah. Colorado's defense looks like it's kind of improved in second halves of games. Again, how much of that's Nebraska taking the foot off the pedal? How much of that is, just being so much more talented than a North Dakota State team? I don't know. But is this a game that Baylor, you feel, can get right on offense, or do you think that may still be a struggle on that side?
Oh, that's tough. Yeah, you're looking at a Baylor squad that, again, put up just 6 points against a fairly porous Air Force team in the first half last week and really came on in the second half. If you're looking at 2 teams that are second half focused, I don't think that bodes well for the Bears, because at that point you're going to try to build a lead in the first half, and I don't know if Baylor can do that. They'll have to, as a key to victory in Boulder. And the offense, the Bears has still so many questions. moving from DeQuan Finn as their starting quarterback and their ace to Sawyer Robertson, a kid who is 21 for 29, 315 yards, and has just one touchdown pass, but looked really good when they called his number last week. Then the running back room for Baylor has 4 guys that are getting theirs, from Pendergrass to Reese to Washington to Richardson. They have 4 different ball carriers. They can't decide who the bell cow is going to be on offense. 3 of those guys, Bryson Washington, the freshman included, have rushed for over 100 yards. Can the Bears find their guy offensively? They have to beat a team like Colorado.
It is early. We're recording this on Monday for those that tune in and watch. But do you have an early lean here? I don't know if you've made a pick this early in the week, but what's your lean on this?
It's tough, TJ, because usually I'd go with culture here. Preseason, I had Colorado winning this game. And again, the disciplined squad comes out on top on the road more. But I'm still going to go Colorado. I think the firepower of Colorado, the talent of Colorado, they have more horses in the stable than Baylor, and that's enough at home to eke out a 4 to 7 point win.
Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
At Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. At LO Big 12 on Twitter as well. Would love to have you.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Always a pleasure.